you could be the one to provide audition experience and casting opportunities for the singers in your studio? Well, you could with an in-house talent agency. This week we are joined by the founder of Studio Talent Collective and Teacher Manager Bootcamp, Josephine Lancuba. Josephine is now a full-time talent agent and works to help teachers like you and I to build our own in-house talent agencies and with ways that we can offer such a service to our clients. Today, Josephine is pulling back the curtain on Studio Talent Collective so that we can get to see how an in-house agency is run and put together, the benefits to us as the teacher, the client experience, and balancing these roles as singing teacher and talent manager. Josephine Lancuba, it's your call to stage. Josephine, if anybody is coming to Sydney in 2026, where is somewhere that we must check out that people may not know about?
Oh my gosh. You know what? If you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would have given you a better answer. But at 42 with two kids, I tell you what, look, honestly, yeah, you know all the hot spots, I'm sure, like the Sydney Harbour and all that jazz. But truthfully, sometimes I find it's in those little local nooks. For example, for the over 40s, they have this really cool over 40s women only club sort of environment where women get together and they dance the night away, and it finishes at 10 p.m., which is now my idea of a good time out because that's like Nana o'clock and I'm super okay with that.
Yeah, that sounds totally my cup of tea as well.
Love that.
Take us through your journey from being a performer to being a studio owner and a business coach, and eventually running Studio Talent Collective, which is your agency that you run.
Yes. So yeah, I started out as a performer. I went to full-time performing arts college. I was a singer predominantly. So I did singing, dancing, and acting. I was a singer first, then actor. I would call myself a dancer third, but I was working professionally as a dancer choreographer as well in my career. But singing was really my first skill and passion. I feel like, that journey was a really tough one in the early days. I was trying to find an agent. I had an agent. I had to get another agent. Like it was just so different. We didn't have all the social media that we have now. So pursuing your performance career back then, we're talking over 20 years ago when I first started, it was challenging. I then, went on to work professionally. I was gigging on stages every weekend. I was working in bands. I was teaching for studios as a vocal coach and a dance teacher. I then went on, to be doing that for over a decade, but it was challenging. Like I was waiting on tables while trying to get my next big break, the life of a performer, right? Uh, and there came a point, I was actually working as Sporty Spice in a tribute band. Um, you wouldn't know it now, but I was Sporty Spice, okay? And I fell pregnant. I was the choreographer of that group. I was hired as the choreographer, and I was also playing the role of Sporty Spice. Um, I was, like I said, I was teaching, I was doing all the things as well during that time. And I was working a lot. I became pregnant with my first child, and I was 4 months pregnant, and I was still playing the role of Sporty. And there comes a point where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. And I also felt like I didn't want to do it anymore. Like I felt like I've been doing this for a really long time. It's been fun. It's been great, but I'm ready to hang up my microphone, have this kid, and then go on to start my own studio. So that's what I did. And I started my performing arts studio. It started as a traditional dance and vocal studio. So we offered private singing lessons, we offered dance classes. And from the get-go, I actually started with an in-house talent agency as well. So the reason that happened, I actually had worked with a management company. I had some experience. I had a mentor who was a talent agent that showed me some of the ropes. So from the get-go, I started my in-house talent agency with my studio. At the time, we were called Next Move Studios, but eventually it rebranded. I had that studio. We became Musical Makers Club and really honed into musical theatre as a business. Although the agency was representing artists, from television, theatre, commercial, whatever, like it wasn't restricted to stage, there was screen work as well. And I did that for 10 years and I ran that business for 10 years. And I actually sold my studio 18 months ago. And that was about the time I stepped full time into Studio Talent Collective, which is the agency I have now. But honestly, the coaching side of it came about during COVID. And I'm sure, and so, like, look, I know that was a bit of a online boom when it came to programs being developed virtually. But it was interesting because COVID kind of spurred a whole virtual awakening from obviously, I don't know, did you have a studio during COVID or no?
I did at the time. I was well, I'd still teach from home, but yeah, I was teaching from home, so it all had to go on online, and the studio I was working for at the time as well all went online.
Yes, so that was a really big challenge, right? Especially with vocal, like, and Zoom and figuring out all the things, right? It's really hard. Anyway, so we brought, at the time, we were doing a musical called Peter Pan, which, is a classic story. And then we rewrote the show and called it Peter Pan Breaks the Internet. And so we rewrote the show. It was, world first self-made, self-taped musical movie filmed by kids, starring kids from home. That was the concept. It was bloody hard. We did it though, and it also was where I developed the Singing Hub. So the Singing Hub was a virtual singing platform, and it was a self-booking system that we created online, which even after COVID and all of that died down and people went back to in person, we kept the Singing Hub, and that was part of my business sale. It was really successful. So that was kind of one of the things that happened. But during that time, I also started coaching. And the reason that happened was because I started realizing that I was getting what's called rollovers. Because at the time you couldn't film, right? People weren't going on set. So, advertising didn't stop during the pandemic. So how does that work? Well, casting, professionals and companies were reusing and reissuing the usage of commercials that were already shot. And so it's called a rollover, right? We're rolling over the usage period and they're paying for the rights to do that. So if they only had 12 months, they've now got 24 months or whatever. And so I was getting these rollover fees from my artists and making commissions during that lull period. I thought, geez, if only more people knew about this. And so I thought, ding, 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 ding. I created Talent Manager Bootcamp, which was a course designed to help studio owners create in-house talent agencies like me. I mean, I did it for over 10 years, my in-house talent agency. And it really wasn't rocket science. But I knew that when I first started, it felt really scary and daunting. And I had all the imposter syndrome and all the things. And I thought, well, what if I could show others how to do it, how to feel confident, where to find the work, how to support your students in getting the work, how to systemize it so that it's a professional service and you're actually representing the students and receiving income. And so, yeah, I just created a beta round. This is a long answer, by the way. Hope you don't mind. But I created a beta round, which was a couple of studio owners that were friends of mine. I gave them a call. I said, I'm doing this thing. I built it live with them. It was a hit. And then after that, it just developed. So Talent Manager Bootcamp still exists. It's a course, but I streamlined it now so that Studio Talent Collective has 3 pathways to talent management. So we have, plug-in talent agency, the course, blah, blah, blah. But we have these 3 pathways to talent management. And it all came from, this moment of sitting there during COVID thinking, if only more people knew about this.
And we're so adaptive, aren't we? Like when we're put in a situation where we can't do what we know that we usually would do, is such a good opportunity, even though it was a horrendous time, to go, well, how can I adapt to this situation? Was there any time in your performance career that you reflected on at this time and thought, this is how I want to run an agency? what were your experiences with agents and with auditioning that sort of made you think about that?
That's such a great question because truthfully, I didn't know where to go. Like after I did full-time performing arts training, and when I came out of full-time, I don't know if you guys have the same, like I'm sure you do, full-time courses, right? And I came out of it and they gave me no training. Like yes, they gave me training for the arts and how to perform and be an amazing performer and but I didn't actually get Performing Arts Business 101. They basically put a few scouts in the audience at your showcase, your graduation showcase, and then you're meant to just like land an agent. And if you don't, you're like, oh, what do I do now? I just think I wish I had more support when I was younger. I think that would have fast tracked my path to success and would have stopped that whole period of uncertainty and fear and scarcity and all of this stuff if I had a studio owner who could have guided me professionally. And this is the backbone, this performing arts studio is the backbone of where, artists are born. It's the development ground, right? It's their stomping ground of development. And so I wish I had that, and I just didn't. And it was really hard. And it doesn't have to be, like, it just should be more accessible. So the concept was about creating something that I didn't have and making the professional entertainment industry more accessible.
From a client perspective, what does the in-house talent agency offer them, as well as all of the support that you can give them in their career and their development?
Well, I'll talk about first the benefits and like of just generally doing it, whether you did it with me or on your own, but just the benefits, right? And they are like it will increase your revenue. Yeah, you increase your revenue as a business. It increases your student retention, right? Because you're offering something, it becomes a one-stop shop essentially. Even those students that might age out of programs or feel like, they're too old to do this, which you're never too old, of course, but that happens. It removes all of that. The retention goes up. So you've got increase in revenue, increase in student retention, but also increase in industry credibility. So I think that that's really important. What we do at Studio Talent Collective is, like I said, we have the three pathways. So the course, Talent Manager Bootcamp, is for people that don't want the plug and play partnership with us. They just want to learn it, they want to understand it, and they want to create their own branded agency. So, Alexa talent management, for example. And so we can support them through the course. They come along, they do it, and then they go off into the world and they do it for themselves. That's pathway one. Pathway two is plug and play. So plug and play is available in Australia only. And the reason for that is because you actually join. So Talent Manager Bootcamp is a worldwide course. We've had people from the UK, the US, New Zealand, just like all over do that course. The plug and play aspect is they actually join us as a talent manager under our agency umbrella, and we're an Australian registered business. So in that way, they get all the support, the resources, they get the auditions literally dropping into their inbox. They get the training, monthly calls, all the things. So complete full service, all the contracts are done for them, everything done for you. And then pathway three is slightly different, where they don't want to be a talent manager. They just want to have an in-house talent agency, and that we come in and we represent their students. They don't get any commissions or anything like that, but they're happy to have us there because, it's good for student retention. They like that their students have opportunities. So we just come in and represent them, but they're not actually talent managers, and they're not receiving the commission benefits of being a partner. So that's the three pathways that we offer.
And for the people on your books, how does it work? Is it like the traditional agency that I'm thinking of here in the UK, where, you'd get your agent, they send you through a casting and you accept or decline and you go to that audition? Exactly the same.
Exactly. We are a traditional talent agency. So traditional in the sense that, yeah, we receive briefs every single day. in film, television, theatre, and commercial. The beautiful thing about it is because the studio owner or their 2IC is the talent manager of their division. So their division is their students. So when they log into these platforms that we provide like access to, they only see their division, which is their studio profile. And they can submit their students on a daily basis for the things that come up. So yeah, so it's very traditional in that sense. We'll put that, they're the best person for the job, by the way, because they know the talent, they understand them. And even if they don't teach them, like if you're a large studio with 500 students, you couldn't possibly know every single student within your walls, but you can find out about them. You can go and watch them in a class. You have access to them. You can talk to their teachers. So you can get to know them better. And I actually think it's a better model than your traditional agency, because when you're a studio owner that represents the talent, like I said, you're giving access to the industry through your studio, but you also have access to the talent. So you get to know them so much more than any agent would normally, which means that you can best represent them and put them forward for the right gig or opportunity where they may have been overlooked in the past. And I think that and I also talk about student retention as a very major benefit. Some people think that when they start a talent agency in-house, that it's for the elite. It's for the competition team. It's for the vocal competition kids only will go for the lead roles, that only them or whatever. It's not the case. There are different opportunities for different levels of talent. And that's the beauty of it. You're going to know if that kid's a bit like, you're their singing teacher, for example, they're a bit shy in class. They're not really, you might not put them forward for Simba and the Lion King, but they can certainly be in a McDonald's commercial and, bite a nugget and go, yum. Like they can do that. They don't need to be a rock star to do that. They just have to, be willing and confident enough to take direction and have something about them. But, I think that there's all different levels of talent within a studio environment. And so that's where the retention comes in, because it can be for everyone. Some people choose to only serve their elite. And, that's fine. You get to, and this is, well, we talk about this in the course Talent Manager Bootcamp. We talk about choosing who you represent and how to define that, and deciding who you represent, like age, abilities, etc. You get to decide. But in my opinion, I think it works really well when everyone's included and you just have different tiers, from commercial talent to professional tier talent.
And how does the industry view in-house talent agencies compared to ones that are your standalones?
I totally get this, and this is where the industry credibility piece comes in. I think when I first started this here in Australia, I think that people were slightly skeptical, and even the students themselves. So what I say is, like, what we're seeing is in the first intake, when a studio starts a talent agency, you might only get 5 to 10% of your studio, that we're seeing that as a recurring percentage. 5 to 10% of the studio typically takes on the agency in the first recruitment round. But what we're seeing is those that stick it out, and a couple of years down the track, more than 50% of their studio is inside the agency. So trust has to be built, because unfortunately, there will be people that see you as just a singing teacher, or just a dance teacher, just a studio owner. But then they come to realize that there are results. So they're seeing their peers doing photo shoots, going for auditions, booking gigs. We talk about that in the course as well, like how to market and celebrate the wins so that your community actually sees the work you're doing, and then it grows. So, yeah, like perception is a thing, but doing this actually increases your industry credibility. Does it happen overnight? Not always. It can take time, but what we're seeing is that it does build over time. And now in Australia, like Studio Talent Collective is very well received by casting directors. And like at the end of the day, casting directors don't actually care. They just want the talent booked for their client. They don't care where it comes from. If it comes from, some dinky studio, like that's fine as long as they get what they need for their client. So I think, overcoming those barriers, it might happen at first. It depends on your demographic, your community, the perception of your community. We're seeing country and regional towns having a bigger intake at first than a city-based studio. And the reason for that is opportunity, right? So they're not saying, oh, geez, is our studio owner going to do any better than that agency down the street that's been there for 20 years? Well, regional and country towns don't have the luxury of those choices. So they're just happy to have the opportunity. So the intake can be larger at first. So sometimes you've got to prove yourself a little bit more in the city, unfortunately, but it does work and it does happen.
Hi, it's Lynn here, popping by with a free resource. If you're a singer who wants to teach but sometimes feels a little unsure or overwhelmed, I've put together some free resources to help you feel grounded and supported as you take your next steps. Just check the link in the podcast description and you'll get an informed, practical PDF guide to help you get started, plus a few follow-up resources to help you feel less of a fraud and more confident in your teaching journey.
So how do you get the contacts to get those auditions coming through for your clients?
Yeah, so it's really not rocket science. And it's funny because I've actually had some pushback from other agents in the industry to the point where I've received a phone call from an agent not liking my content when I say it's not rocket science because they think it's belittling the industry. I am a disruptor and I don't really care about comments like that because it is not rocket science. There are websites and tools that industry people use and everybody can access them. Yeah, you might have to start on some smaller platforms because look, some of them are very old school in the sense that you need to have a written reference from an industry person, blah, 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 to get vetted. So you need to be vetted on some of these platforms, but there are others that you don't. Like in the UK, there's a platform called Spotlight. And so Spotlight is one of them. You've got Casting Networks, which is global, and it's here in Australia as well. These are things that we talk about in Talent Manager Bootcamp. And some of these platforms, you need to be vetted to be an agent on them. Now, in the US, you have to be registered to be an agent. In Australia, you don't. You have to be a registered business, but you don't need an agency license. So it depends on your state and territory, but these are the things you can find out. But like I said, there are platforms that exist. We have website, musical theatre audition sites. Disney has literally got a link that has all of the worldwide touring Disney auditions listed. You just need to know what links and what websites to go to. And then you create a profile as an agent on these websites. If there are productions that you're seeing pop up online that you're like, who's casting that? Like we had Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat come to Sydney and I couldn't find who it wasn't coming up on any of my platforms or whatever. I thought, so I went and I just literally did a Google search. Who is the production company producing the tour of, blah, blah, blah. Website. Great. Went to the website, went to the contact page. casting@productioncompanyname.com. Fantastic. Sent an email. Hey, I've got a talent agency filled with fantastic youth musical theatre talent. I know you're going to be touring Sydney soon. Can we get put on your list? So when auditions pop up and they're like, absolutely, we'll pop you on the auditions list. And then we got an email when it comes around. That's it. I think people think it's so much harder. Of course, there are networks and connections and things that you build. There are certain, casting directors that you build connections with over time. But a lot of it is available through pre-existing platforms and you just have to work your way in. And that's it. And then every day, literally Monday to Friday, I do a 9:30 login and I do a 2:30 login to the platforms, and I just check what the briefs are and I hit the submit button. It's really quick these days, by the way, on platform. It's not like sending the old CV and individually via email, like that will take you 100 years. These platforms are designed so that it is quick and easy and the click of a button. So I could spend 15 minutes on a Monday. Mondays are typically quiet. On a Monday morning, just checking briefs. If there's nothing there, I'll get to the rest of my work for that day, marketing, whatever I'm doing, calls, client calls, and then I'll do another look in the afternoon. So, it's like I said, it's not rocket science.
You mentioned that you sold your business 18 months ago and now you are solely doing your Studio Talent Collective work. At the time where you were balancing both, being a singing teacher and doing the talent agency and being an agent, did you find that there was a shift you had to make between the roles?
Yeah, so they are different roles, but they connect beautifully. It's like a natural evolution of a studio environment, in my opinion. Uh, yes, you have to put aside time for the work. Like, let's say if you do 30 minutes a day on a weekday, and this is reactive, right? So I always see it, the agency, and I did this, I had a talent agency in-house for over 10 years while running my, singing studio and my musical theatre school. And we had multiple locations. We had 7 locations at one point, and then we downsized after COVID to 4. But my whole thing was that it was a natural evolution and it made sense. When it comes to wearing different hats, I think that goes for every role in the business. Like if you're serious about marketing, if you're serious about sales, if you're serious about teaching, these are all like, doing the books, the accounting, I think especially a solopreneur or small business owner, you're the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, right? And every task requires time delegation. And I have to say that that is something that I did master over time. It's definitely not something I had in the beginning. But my days are structured. Like I just told you, 9:30 I do this, 2:30. Like I have everything. Like Monday is social media and marketing. Wednesday is sales day. Friday is financial Friday and metrics and doing my bookkeeping. Like I am quite structured in that sense. And I kind of needed to be successful, especially with running 4 studio locations, running a talent agency. So yeah, look, there are multiple hats, but I think it would be like I say it's like introducing a tap program or introducing, a cabaret class or something. For me, it's just adding another revenue stream to the already existing business, and it totally makes sense. And yeah, it's another hat, but it's like anything. And you can outsource it, you can hire someone and train them, but like you would in your marketing, or if you wanted someone to do your social media or whatever. But yeah, like definitely, of course, all the hats. I wear all the hats. Lots and lots of hats.
Was there any moment of like a conflict of interest or where you found that somebody you were working with who maybe wasn't getting as many auditions or how it is being a performer, that sort of rejection? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, look, there's going to be people that book on the first week and people that do 100 auditions and don't book a thing. And I talk about this in the course. And I think this is important because the experience should be beyond being booked. The experience should be, and this is what I say to people, like I do an information session every recruitment round, and I always recommend this. So if you're a studio owner looking to start an in-house talent agency, unlike a traditional talent agency where you keep the books open all year round, we do recruitment windows because remember the core business is the singing studio or the teaching and the classes. So we want to continue to love up our current customers and just provide an extra service. So there are recruitment rounds. So, we might say, okay, we're opening the books this month, that month, and that month, and that's it, right? and we upsell them to a photo shoot, maybe a photo shoot and a workshop. So there's an opportunity for immediate income from each recruitment round. Like I said, so there's people that, like I said, won't book a thing, but the experiences along the way are really important. And those recruitment rounds, I always do like a virtual information session for the recruitment. I record it, send it out as well. But I always say, and I say this like it's a script, that we are not going to promise you that you or your child, depending on the demographic, your child is going to be a star. That is not what this is. We're not promising you the gig. What we are promising you is that when every suitable opportunity that hits our desk, we will put you forward for. And you / your child will be in the arena of opportunity, because it is better to be put forward and to be in the arena of opportunity than to not be considered at all. And so that is what we will do for you. And when you set that expectation from the get-go, it changes the tone. So make the photo shoot that you do every year, your annual photo shoot, make it special, make it great and fun, Get them performing at your showcase an agency number. Give them a little bit extra. Host an awards night for your agency students. Like, bring them into the community so that even if they don't book a thing, they still love it. They want to still do it. Yeah. And I think that that's important, because we cannot guarantee that everyone will book the gig. And in fact, most of them won't. So that's kind of like the conversion rate for us. We had 1,000 auditions in 2025. I think it was 970. So I don't know. It was about 1,000. And out of that 1,000, we had, I'm going to say 92, but it could be 96 paid bookings. So you're looking at close to 10% conversion on audition. But some of those bookings were from the same talent. And so you can see that over 900 of those auditions didn't, get anything back. But I can confidently say that we do a really good job of putting everyone forward. And so I would say most of our talent has at least had one audition throughout the year, at least. Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point, isn't it? We've talked a bit about the audition process on this podcast before, and how, if you put all of the success on the result, that's going to feel really difficult. But actually, there's so much more to that audition than whether you got the job or not. How you felt in the room, if your nerves were actually a little bit more well managed compared to last time, whether you felt confident, whether you delivered that song in the best way that you've done so far. There's just so much more to take from it than did I get it or not.
It has to be. It has to be. And there's the opportunity as well. Like, we talk about the 7 key revenue streams in Talent Manager Bootcamp. And we talk about, the opportunity as one of the streams being providing audition technique workshops and classes. So, school holiday camp, how to film a great self-tape, mock audition day, whatever. And so it's an opportunity to, again, further develop your talent, bring in your agency talent, but also show your external talent that isn't in the agency, but is in your classes, what it can look like. It's such an opportunity to further develop their confidence and skills. But you have to have that lens. And if you're, a studio owner that puts it all on the win, it's just not gonna, yes, then it will fall flat. But if you focus on the experience, then I think you'll get a far better result. And that's where the retention will continue to rise.
What role should a singing teacher play, do you think, in deciding whether a student is ready for an audition or professional work? And how do you communicate that to them?
Yeah, so this is where I will differ from most industry opinion. I think that everyone can be in an agency. Everyone, literally. And so when are they ready? Well, you won't know until you put them forward. Obviously, there were going to be people that cannot retain script work, and you're going to, sometimes from personality, and sometimes it can be a conversation, but also it can be trial and error too. I've put people forward for stuff thinking that they were amazing, great personality, and then when they've received the script that, it might be a child actor and the parents come back and said they're really uncomfortable with learning script. They only want to do like model and commercial. I'm like, great, thanks for letting me know. We'll make a note of that. But sometimes you just need to put them forward to figure it out. There are other times where you'll see a self-tape of something and you'll go, okay, so at first I would recommend reviewing the self-tapes before submission. But once someone is a bit of a pro and they've done it like more than like a couple of auditions and they get it, then I would be like, that's fine. I don't have to like review everything at all, because you'll sit there for 6 years and we don't want to do that. This is meant to be an addition to your business and not take up your entire life, right? Your core business is the classroom, and that's your core business. This is a side business that integrates with what you've currently built. That's how I see it. So, but at first you want to review, and if it's atrocious, like as in unsubmittable, that's when you can make a decision. A, you ask them to refilm with direction, or B, they're not ready and you just don't submit. But the thing is, they're not going to know if you submit or not. And I know that's awful, but they don't. And sometimes you don't need to tell them. You just won't put them forward for that until they're ready. What you can then do is recommend, hey, I noticed that there were some weak points in the audition or room for improvement in A, B, C, D. We offer that training if that's of interest to you. Hey, I noticed in your vocal tape for that role in Anastasia that it was a little bit pitchy. I would recommend, not just doing our group vocal class, but I would actually recommend privates if you're wanting to go for these lead role opportunities. Then private lesson is going to be the pathway for you, for us to be able to pop you forward for lead roles. Like, that's the upsell, right? But also it's great for the talent because they get real feedback. And this is the sort of feedback traditional agents usually can't give. Now, regardless if you're a dance teacher, a singing teacher, an acting teacher, let's say you're a singing teacher and there's a dance audition and you're not a dancer, you may not know everything when you watch a video, technically, but that's okay too. Sometimes you have to lean on the training that is said that they've had. When it comes to youth, I think there's a bit more leniency in that. Like a 10-year-old, of course, they're not going to have any experience. Like, of course not. I mean, we booked an 8-year-old boy, his first audition. There was a show, I don't know if it was in the UK, but it was called Apple Cider Vinegar on Netflix. And it was major, it was #1 in Australia for a long time. And I think it was #5 globally on Netflix. And we booked the role of Hunter Cross, which is the little boy with brain cancer. He's 8. And that was like one of his first auditions ever. And he booked the role. So, I think sometimes you got to just trust that they have personality, or, that they're a confident kid or whatever. Is there as much leniency with adult talent? Of course, it's more competitive, but that doesn't mean that they can't give things a go, but they will absolutely need to train as an adult, and they will need to get some tools and resources under their belt, like, some scene work, a show reel, things like that we can support our submissions with. But they can do that in a classroom-led environment. And these are other upsell opportunities. And again, part of those 7 key revenue streams in Talent Manager Bootcamp. But these are the sorts of things that you can do to upskill the talent. But of course, there's going to be people that don't book a thing. And that's just the way it goes. So provide an experience.
Hey you! If you're enjoying the Singing Teachers Talk podcast, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We are committed to bringing you engaging conversations and valuable insights from experts across the field of voice. By subscribing, it means we can continue to do that. You'll never miss an episode, and you'll be helping to spread the word to other singing teachers, vocal coaches, and overall voice nerds. So subscribe to this channel now and just watch your teaching grow. For someone who is wanting to bring this in as part of their side business, is there a fee to join the books? How would you advise somebody to price singing lessons compared to this other side of things?
Yeah, so this is very, very much determined by where you're from. So in Australia, for example, a talent agent will not take more than 10% commission, but we also can charge management fees. So in my agency, we charge 10% agency fee and 10% management fee, which comes to a 20% total. And we're a much smaller market than the UK. Like the UK is a much larger market. There's going to be more auditions just based on population alone. Okay. So, that's kind of how that works. In the States, it'll be different, but typically, an agent will take 10% commissions. And then if they provide management services, and we go through that in the course, then you can charge that additionally. But I'd be looking at the agencies in your local area and seeing what the going rate is in regards to commissions, or if there's any sort of legislation around that. But, it's anywhere from that 10 to 20%. From there, joining fees. Look, I'm not a fan of the joining fee, but I do believe that there should be essential tools that are associated to joining the agency. So for us, we don't have a joining fee or a fee to audition. I think that's probably not really delivering with integrity. But we do say that if you want to join us, then you need professional headshots, and this is our photographer, and this is the cost. So basically, cost of entry is you need a photo shoot with us. They purchase that, and we actually are looking to move that to a subscription model. So right now, we remind people hey, it's been 12 months since your last photo shoot, la, 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 book now, here's the thing. We're going to change that to a subscription model. So we're going to say, this is the amount for the photo shoot, and we're also going to provide some video tools, like I said, video on how to film a great self-tape, lighting your self-tape on blast. So some video tools in a toolkit. Plus, they'll get one photo shoot per year under this annual subscription, which they can cancel anytime, within 30 days notice. So that's how we're going to operate moving forward, only because we actually really do need them to update their photos, because I don't want people on the books that have photos from 7 years ago, or a 10-year-old that has photos from when they were 7. It makes no sense. Like, if you want to be represented by us, we actually need these tools to do our job. So I'm going to be, in 2026, we're building it in to our business model where it's a subscription, because otherwise you're chasing people for the sale. And we don't want to do that. We just want it to be, this is the cost of doing it. But it is not a joining fee. It is a necessary tools fee. Now, if they come to us with headshots that they literally just did last week and they are really great, we will say potentially, look, management approval, we're happy to join you with these headshots. But honestly, rarely does that ever happen. And we don't accept dance studio photos, because they are not what we're looking for, a bun with red lipstick and going like this. We don't want those. Anyone that's not watching the visual, I just put my hands under my chin and did a little head tilt with a smile. Like, that's not what this is. That, we don't want makeup on kids. We want them natural. We want people to look like themselves. We also want versatility. We give 3 looks in our photo shoot. This is very important. Sometimes people will go to a headshot photographer, they have really dull photos. They've got this one look in a black t-shirt because they've been told that they should wear black and not color, and like, no, be yourself, right? So we say, yeah, these are cool, but so moving forward, we're going to go to subscription model. But look, some people do have joining fees. Again, it depends on what is allowed. In New South Wales, Australia, we don't, but in Victoria, you can. But honestly, joining fees and things like that can be a deterrent to an artist within the industry. And so, yeah. And by the way, I want to preface this. There are youth talent agencies that charge people ridiculous fees for photo shoots that they don't need and unnecessary portfolios. A 4-year-old does not need to spend $3,000 on a photo shoot to be in a talent agency. That is highway robbery and it is wrong. Now, it depends how you sell it. If you're selling it as beautiful photos with this high-end experience and they get that's fine. But if you're saying this is what you need to be represented and to be a star, then that's total BS. And I'm not down for that. So, like it's chalk and cheese comparing our dollars because it's like we're in two different parts of the world. But we will charge anywhere upward from really reasonable prices from anywhere $220 to $300 Australian dollar for a photo shoot package, and they only need to do that once a year. The other cost though is if they're joining these platforms like casting networks or Spotlight, there are subscription fees. We don't get a kickback from that, but they do have free profile options. We recommend our talent to pay for profiles, but if they go the free profile option, then they only get like usually 2 photos and 1 video. It limits our ability to submit with some versatility from the shoot. Having said that though, like what do you do? Like if they're on a free profile, they're on a free profile. But that's a cost. But again, we don't get a kickback and we will recommend it, but we can't enforce it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the same over here in terms of if you find an agency asks you for a joining fee, from my experience, it's always been a little red flag.
Look, you know what though? I do get annoyed at some of these actor Facebook groups and stuff because they're like, oh, the agent charges. It's like, agents got to eat too, right? Like there's a lot of free work that we do that artists just don't get. There's also a lot of expectation. Like, for example, we had an actor on my books and she just joined our books. She wanted to be put forward for Home and Away. Home and Away in the UK, right?
Home and Away, absolutely. And Neighbours, absolute classics.
Absolutely. Anyway, she wants to be put forward for this role on Home and Away. She finds out, I say to her, okay, great. You need to update your profile. She's an adult actor. By the way, I want to be clear, adult actor. You need to update your profile. I need more photos from your shoot. Please upload your credits and, your video, like your showreel video, blah, blah. If you want me to submit you for this, you need to flesh out the profile for me to be able to do that. It's like, yeah. A couple of weeks later, she sends me a totally abusive email saying, I found out from my friend who works with blah, 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 that you didn't submit me for Home and Away. And I'm like, and she was like being really verbally abusive in this email. And I'm like, I responded very professionally. I'm like, I didn't submit you because you didn't do the thing that I asked you to do. If you want something, you actually have to do some work too. And I said, and by the way, just so you know, since then, and I attached a submission report, we've actually submitted you for XYZ commercials and these other opportunities. So we've been working for you behind the scenes, but for that one, no, we didn't because you didn't do your job. And so I think that, again, I've learned a lot in this process, and these are the things I talk about in, what I call these agency information sessions when I'm in recruitment rounds. I will say, this is a two-way street. I will do everything I can with the tools provided, but I can't do it for you. I can't book you the job. I can put you forward, but I can't book you the job. Now, if we ask for something, you have to respond. We expect same-day responses. So whenever we send an audition out, it'll usually go as an email through a platform, an automated thing. It's so easy. It takes 2 seconds. Clickety click, boom, we have a template, and boom, it goes. And then we send a template text. Congratulations, Johnny, you have an audition. Please see your email, yada, yada, yada. Respond today in capital letters if you will be submitting. Today, even if the audition is not due for a week. So basically we require acknowledgement. It's a two-way street, right? And so these are the sorts of things we need to do. It's communication, but we're not miracle makers either. So sometimes when I was like, oh, I haven't had an audition in 12 months, it's like, have you requested a submission report from your agent? I bet you there's 100 submissions on there. So why aren't you getting auditions? When was the last time you updated your profile? When was the last time you changed your default photo? When was the last time you upped your skills, did a show reel or did a new scene? You know, like there's only so much we can do as well. And I think that there needs to be a two-way street on accountability. But as well, when you're representing minors, the client is not just the child, it's the parent too. So you got to, they're not from this world, most of them. So you do have to, that's where the management comes in. That's why we deserve our management commission, because when you're dealing with youth, you have to like support and nurture and help the parent. We have videos and tutorials on how to film a great self-tape that we send to them. And, you know, if you have questions, let us know. So there is a bit of that to and fro support for sure.
Yeah, I had an agent when I was performing, lovely agent, and she always sent me through the reports when requested, and you can see, you know, how much work she was doing behind the scenes, which you don't see publicly unless you ask to see that. And yeah, there were loads on there. And sometimes that can be disheartening for the actor because they can be like, oh, why am I not even getting in the room? But then, as you say, it can then make you think, well, how can I change my profile and what could I do this end? But also knowing that these are the things your agent's doing for you can be quite nice to know.
Well, here's the thing. I was doing an interview earlier today. I've actually got a podcast, funnily enough. It's called Studio Talent Collective, which we rebranded a few months ago to the actual agency name. So Studio Talent Collective, the podcast as well. But I was just interviewing someone and we were talking about the founder of Canva. Do you have Canva?
Of
Canva,
course,
right?
yeah,
Everyone's
yeah,
got Canva.
yeah.
Anyway, founder of Canva, she was going for funding. I know this is a totally different topic, but it relates. And she did 100 applications looking for people to invest in this concept. 100 applications before someone said yes. And she is Canva today. You may have to do 100 auditions before someone says yes. But I promise you, this is a numbers game. Business is a numbers game. It's all a numbers game. You know, the more people, like for example, Facebook ads, if you're, you know, marketing your studio on Facebook ads or your singing studio or your classes, if you're doing that, you're going to get rubbish leads, but you're also going to get good leads. And the more leads you have, the more people, like it becomes a conversion rate. Like I said, if we're converting 9%, 10% of our auditions, and we want to book XYZ, then we need not just 1,000 auditions, we might need 2,000 auditions. So if I have X amount of, it's all numbers and metrics. If I have this many people on my books today getting me this many auditions, converting this many, then I need to have this many people on my books to get that many auditions and convert that many. Likewise, you might say, hey, how can we improve our conversion rate? Okay, let's give them a how to film a great self-tape. Let's, you know, do school holiday workshops. Let's coach our parents on how to, you know, light your camera, your phone for at-home filming. Like, so it's about metrics. Business is all metrics, even creatively. This is why I love business, because it's like there's a bit of guesswork taken out. Even in a creative aspect, there is some guesswork taken out and it can be a numbers game. So the more you do something, the more chances you have of hitting the success and kicking goals. But you got to be consistent and you have to keep going. And a lot of people give up. A lot of people give up because they get disheartened. It is not, you know, the performing arts industry is not for the for the weak, that's for sure. But likewise, business is also, you know, you got to have grit. You know, like when I first started my studio, I had like 12 students, literally 12 students. By the end of the first year, I had 40. By the following year, we had 100. Then it built to 7 sites. Like, I could have given up in that first year. We broke even. I made no money. I didn't pay myself for a couple of years. That is how it starts. But eventually, with consistency and strategy, by the way, there's got to be some strategy in here. You can't just keep showing up, knocking your head against the wall, doing the same thing. That doesn't work every day. With a bit of strategy, tweaking, seeing what works, measuring your metrics, all the things will grow. So the same is for the acting career and supporting your students through that success, and teaching them that grit, determination, consistency. Like, you got to work for it. And that is what is missing in some artists that we represent, the expectation that they just show up and that's enough. I don't think it's enough. These days, casting directors are starting to look at social media. Well, they're not starting to, they look at your social media. So you need to clean up your profile. There are some things that are looking for a follower base. I don't like that. I think that's nonsense, and I don't really like that, but sometimes they do. But then you've got these shows that have hit the market, like Heated Rivalry. Is that a big thing in the UK now too?
Not that I'm aware of.
Heated Rivalry, huge, yeah, huge in the States. Anyway, check it out, guys. But like, they're no-name actors who had no profile, no nothing. They've gone into this series and it's like blown up. And that can happen with great talent too. So I think, I'm hoping that casting doesn't go too far down the line of you've got to have, 10,000 followers to book a thing. I think, I'm hoping that we still can genuinely care about good talent. But yes, you need to look at your social media, even as a business owner, your personal account. If you teach 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 20, like 15-year-olds, and you've got something on there that you wouldn't want a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, or a 15-year-old to see, and it's public, then you need to think about that. Like, your personal brand is represented in every aspect of your online digital life. And so, I just think there's so much more to it that we can do to really elevate our brand and our personal brand within our business.
Does an in-house agency work for people who do have a very small amount of students? Maybe they teach peripatetically from a school, but on the side they have maybe 8 students. Can it still work for them?
Absolutely. There's no rule. You can manage one person, you can manage 10 people, 100 people. There's no rule. Um, I would say if I was going to only manage a couple of people, that's when I would be selective because the volume's not there. That's when I would be like, they are really talented and I know that they've got potential. Like, I can really do something with that. And then it would be worth my time because there's no skin in the game when it comes to volume and numbers. Then I would go for a more boutique approach. So I would be selective if I only had 3 or 4 people that I represent, that they're really incredible talent. And like, I know that I'm like excited to work with them. That would be a different approach. But yes, absolutely.
What other policies do you need to have in place to run a professional agency? And what is the role that you take in terms of safeguarding for these castings?
Yeah, so um, the policy would be that have an agreement. I'm into exclusive representation. I'm really not interested in people that have multiple agents. It's not for me. There's too many crossovers, especially in a small industry like Australia. I'm just not wanting them like to be on multiple books. So, an agency contract is a great place to start. Having an agreement in place. The other thing would be, in regards to safeguarding them. Look, in Australia, we have laws and, child employment policies and things like that. You're never going to be across all the things, but you can have an oversight. Like, for example, if you have students who are children, you know, there are resources available. Just go to your local child employment representative, and say, and like there's usually like a PDF that says babies can't be on set for more than 3 hours. Like, and you just know, and those are the basics. When you're going through professional, larger companies that use high-end platforms like, you know, casting networks as an example, these things are usually dealt with on their end. We're not really like, we'll just get the contract and the DM, the deal memo, and it'll have all things. And you know, they've got the people on set doing all the things, and it's very professional. But there are basics like, you know, just checking, you know, how many hours they are on set, if they get a break, things like that. Is there catering, you know, food provided, that sort of thing. Just the basics, I think, is a good place to start. But definitely when it comes to children's employment, there's usually like a one-pager overview that's available by your local representative that will be able to provide that for you.
If you were starting again today as a singing teacher and as a talent agency, what would you do differently, or what would you absolutely keep the same?
I think I had a lot of self-doubt in the beginning. Um, and I think it would have been great to lean more on mentors and support in the beginning and not feel embarrassed to ask questions. That's very important. Like, speak to people in your industry. You know, you've got people like myself, you've got other, like, you know, groups. You might have friends who are in the industry. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions, because it is better to ask a question and get it right, especially when you're representing someone, than not. But yeah, I would just be not feeling as foolish about being at the beginning of the journey, and you know, sort of removing that imposter syndrome. Um, I wouldn't change a thing when it comes to having started the in-house talent agency, and having that representation in-house. I think I was a bit lenient in some areas when I first started about my, like, earning money. I do not like people that are time wasters. I don't allow for them to waste my time anymore. So I kind of have a three strikes you're out rule. I don't share that with the talent. I just do it. So basically, if they do a no-show, they're non-responsive, I just put a mark on their name on a spreadsheet, and then I have a template email which releases them from the agency. Hey, you haven't responded to blah, 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 the last 3 auditions. Unfortunately, you know, this doesn't meet our standards. We require you to be responsive to our requests, blah, blah, blah. So we're, you know, going to be releasing you from our books. So these are policies that I put in place because I don't want to spend my time submitting someone for something that is commission-based only and them not even showing up. Like, that is such a waste. Like, it's so disrespectful. Now, I can give someone a warning or check in. I'm not going to be like a total a-hole. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, especially like, hey, are you okay? We noticed you didn't respond. We need a same day response. Will you be shocked? Like, are you going to be submitting for this audition? The casting director's chasing this up. And then they might apologize. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My grandma was in hospital, whatever. Okay, cool, cool, cool. But if they keep doing it, then it's just like, I'm just not going to work with you. Now, if this happens in a studio environment, that might feel awkward because you don't want to lose a client, but you won't, because they know. So you can be respectful in the sense that, hey, we think this might not be the right fit for you, or maybe you don't have the capacity for this right now because we've noticed you have been non-responsive on the last 3 requests. So we think it would probably be best to pause your agency membership at this time. Would you agree that that's fair and reasonable? And they're usually going to agree with you because they know. They're like, yeah, you know what? I've been so busy. I can't do it. That's fine. No problem at all. We're so happy to have you in our classes. And, you know, if and when you're ready, let us know, and we can try it again in the future. That's it. So, I think being more firm on that. Like, I remember this was when I first started my studio and my agency. I was in my first year and I had this amazing kid come in and do a trial class. And I thought she was phenomenal and they wanted to join the agency. And they also wanted to do classes. And they couldn't really afford the classes, but because of, their look and their ability and this, I was like, oh my God, I've got to have this kid in my classes, but I've also got to have her in the agency. So I said, hey, join our agency and I will give you a scholarship to classes. So they took the scholarship and then a week later, they hadn't done the paperwork for the agency. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm just chasing up. I noticed you haven't yet done the agreement, which we now just do a digital tick form, by the way. So there's no like printed anything. I've noticed that you haven't done the thing. And they're like, oh yeah, we decided not to do that. We've actually joined XYZ agency. I was really thrown back. I couldn't believe it. They took the scholarship and didn't join the agency. And I let them happen now. I'd be like, oh, no, actually, maybe you misunderstood and I wasn't clear enough. I'm offering you this scholarship so that you can be a part of our agency as well. That was kind of the point. And I wasn't clear enough. So that's on me too. So, like people will walk all over you if you let them. So being clear in your policies, I have no regrets on giving a scholarship when I want to give a scholarship, but if there are rules around that, like having it in writing, sending an email with those bullet points of the, what the arrangement actually is, like being clear and not wish-washy. I think I was definitely too wish-washy in the early days. And people like, I've got one more story for you, Alexa. Okay, this is about someone not paying their fees. I'll never forget this mum. Literally, she comes in and she's like, oh my God, Joe, I'm so sorry. I know my fees are behind. We haven't paid. It was like, she owed me like 200 and something bucks at the time. But still, like, I'm a small business. That 200 something dollars means something. And we've provided the lessons. Like, anyway, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not able to pay the fees. I'm totally broke. I've just come back from Bali and bought myself a new car. And I was like, it was actually so embarrassing. She said it at the front desk in front of other customers. I felt really embarrassed and I felt really foolish. And I realized that it was a Mustang. That's right. She bought a brand new black Mustang. Do you want to see it? It's out on the street. I said, no, it's all right. I'm really busy. I couldn't believe it. She really said that. She couldn't pay me because she came back from a holiday and bought a new car, a new Mustang out on the street. And it was from then that I created policies around payment. I thought, I'm not going to let people do that to me anymore. That's when I moved to direct debits. That's when I moved to upfront payments. That's when I moved to 14-day policies. We changed our T's and C's, and we got really strict about it. And we lost a couple of people, but they're not paying you, they're not customers anyway. If they're not showing up to the auditions, they're not in your agency anyway. If they're not buying the photo shoot, they're not your customer anyway. So I think sometimes we have these vanity metrics, which is how many people are in our agency, how many people are in our singing school. If they're not paying you, it's a total waste of time. So yeah, I think being more firm around your boundaries. So that was a really long answer, but that is actually it. That is the answer to the question. What would I do differently? I would set my personal boundaries in place from the get-go and create policies that are non-emotional around the boundaries. Template emails, follow-up systems for non-payers, template you're out because you didn't do the thing. I just follow the system now. And I'll tell you what, it's beautiful. It is so beautiful. And I remove the emotion because business has churn. People will leave you. And that's okay too. So, once you start to just think of it like that, and it's hard, I know when you teach someone, you can build a connection with them, it's a more personal, intimate service, it's the arts, you're more passionate, but it is a business at the end of the day. So I think, you can feel a little bit emotional about it, but you need to follow a business policy and strategy around those boundaries.
This has been such an awesome chat, Josephine. Thank you so much. Where can we find out about the course to join and learn about being an agent? And where can we follow you and get in touch with any questions and things?
Okay, so Instagram is a great place to start. So at Studio Talent Collective. I don't know if you put notes in the show notes, but
Yes,
whatever.
it'll be there.
Yeah, great. So at Studio Talent Collective, send me a message on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you. I do respond to humans. I love human connection. You can also find me at studiotalentcollective.com. And if you're very interested in the course, Talent Manager Bootcamp, you can go to studiotalentcollective.com/talent. And that will lead you to the course information. But yeah, you can shoot me a DM as well and have a chat. I'm more than happy to do that.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Josephine. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.